Hello, everybody, and a warm welcome to this webinar. Today, we're going to have a look at SAP Yard Logistics. We will see how you can actually have a full visibility, higher efficiency, and the complete connectivity for your yard. Your hosts for today, myself, Peter.Wenzel. I'm the global lead for Yard Logistics at Westernacher, and I also have my colleague joining, Mr. Augustin. He's one of our consultants for SAP Yard Logistics. And we're going to introduce today the new solution or new on the market solution, SAP Yard Logistics. What will we do today? So first of all, we're going to have a look at the business process. So we will do a rough walkthrough through a yard process. After that, we will have some insight on the functional overview of SAP Yard Logistics. We will then highlight some of the strategic partnerships that we have closed that will help you to go to a completely automated yard. And we will also talk about our commitment in the last part, where we actually show our experience and show our well-trained and good educated team. Okay, so starting with the business process. What can you expect? So the first step in that is that we do, in the yard process, we do a kind of a planning. That means I specify the date and time, I specify my carrier, I specify my driver, and all the other information that I know upfront before my transport is actually coming in. This might be also some other data, like for example, I know maybe some pager number, I may know some license plates. So all the information I have upfront, they are more or less put into a planning. Planning not only means that I actually capture date and time, but that I also do a dock appointment scheduling, that I assign the doors, or assign silos, so that I really do a kind of a really good upfront planning to make sure that all the processes on the yard are running smoothly. The next step is then during the execution, we need to make sure that we have tracked all our assets on the yard. That means we know where are my transportation units, where are they currently, what is the status, are they empty, are they filled? So I have a complete tracking not only of the transportation units themselves, but also of their status or of their properties. The next thing is that I need to make sure I have a good communication with my drivers, with all the resources I have on my yard. That means I need to make sure that either I communicate via pager or via SMS communication, or that I work with some signs, so like some hardware signs on my yard that I actually steer via SAP Yard Logistics. And then we also have some exceptions. So in the best case, everything runs smoothly on the yard, but in some cases I might have some exceptions. This means I need to actually do some actions when I see those exceptions. This could be something like my truck is late, I did not, or my yard task did not execute in the right way. So I need to make sure that I have all my follow-up actions being planned. So for example, that I send out an SMS to a certain guy who needs to check a container because it was not moved in the correct way, and see what was happening there, or that you send an email, or that you actually have a kind of a follow-up monitor where guys can see what went wrong, and so they can do directly actions from the system. We will see later an example from one of our assets where we have built that. Once I have done all my exceptions and I have done my planning, I have done my presence, I go to the next step, and this is the analysis of the past. So I want to see what are the delays on my yard, what is the utilization, of course, of my handling resources, for example. So if I have my mule that is operating on the yard, that is shifting containers from A to B, I also want to see how good my utilization on this was, because of course this costs some money. Also, I can later on see all the exceptions, and I can do an analysis why things go wrong on my yard. This is a really important thing to actually improve later on with your processes. And all of that is actually captured then in some KPIs. So we can think about a daily, monthly, or yearly report, so that all of that is captured. And also when we run on HANA, we actually have the possibility to do this completely live in the system. So far, so good from a business perspective. Of course, this business perspective can get pretty complex. It can also have a lot of more items than the ones we just showed. So yeah, let's move to a functional overview. What does SAP Yard Logistics actually offer? So starting from this circle again that you see on the left side, we have actually highlighted some of the yard processes here, some of the elements. So for the planning stuff, we actually start with some dock appointments so that carriers have the possibility to log into a carrier portal and plan upfront before they actually arrive at the yard some appointments. Appointments can mean I book an appointment at the door, I book an appointment at the silo, or even I book an appointment for some specific tasks such as cleaning, repairs, or also, for example, a trailer checker that needs to be planned upfront. Also, I have the possibility to work with work lists so that I see what is coming to my yard. I can see what is planned for the day. I can even do some filtering, or if you need to do that, you can actually do from this work lists, you can do an export, and with that I can an export to Excel, and then I can actually do more sophisticated macros on that to make sure that I really have the information I need upfront. You can also work with schedules. So in case I have a transport that comes in every Monday from 9 to 10, I can work with that as well, so that I have this upfront being pre-planned for a certain period. I can also work then, as I said, with a carrier integration. That means once I have pre-planned my dock appointments, or I have defined actually certain slots, then the carrier is able to log into the system and see those available slots, and from there he can actually start and book some slots in the system via a web portal. Not only this, but he can also go in and also change something like the license plate. He can actually specify the driver. So the better the planning is, the smoother my execution goes. That means the more information the carrier enters up front, the less information the driver has to put in once he actually arrives at the yard. Having said that, we see on the right side one example from one of our customers. We see we have a small parking spot on the bottom side where the trucks are actually arriving. We then have some check-in lanes that are a little bit higher on this picture, and in green you see those doors that we have modeled there. And for some of the container process, we also have some parking spots in white here on the yard. So having said that, this is like a screenshot. So of the planning again, you see down there we actually have a Gantt chart where you see all this planning that is there up front. This is an application that runs in the browser and is actually consuming then the data from SAP Yard Logistics. And having such a good overview, I can really make sure that my planning is stable and that my planning is really very good upfront. Moving to the next slide, coming to the execution of the yard tasks or of the yard process. First of all, we have a pretty tight integration to SAP ERP, SAP EWM, and SAP Transportation Management. I will come to this more in detail later. Just to say this, each and every system is integrated, and there are various scenarios how to integrate. So with delivery shipments, I will come to that, what is actually possible in that sense. We also have the integration with the cloud platform for the IoT stories, for the SAP Leonardo stories. So there we actually pull data out of the cloud platform. Why do we do that? Because we store all the sensor data basically in the cloud platform, because we don't want to have the SAP Yard Logistics being completely filled with sensor data that I don't really need. So the idea is to store all that data that comes from the sensor, first of all, in the cloud platform. There I'm working with a huge HANA database. and only the information that is needed is then pushed into SAP Yard Logistics. One example could be, I have a sensor on my container, and once the truck enters the yard, I want to track that temperature. And this means the temperature is then sent to SAP Cloud Platform, and in the Cloud Platform, this data is stored in HANA database, and from there, a certain rule set is configured. So for example, the temperature should not be higher than 30 degrees. So all the values that are below 30 degrees, SAP Yard Logistics doesn't really care about them. But as soon as the temperature goes higher than 30 degrees, we actually need to trigger something in SAP Yard Logistics, for example, an exception to make sure that somebody is going out now and checking the temperature of this container or checking the cooling machine in that container. So we have there a full integration with the sensors, and we can also think about other scenarios such as the maintenance or the controlling of silos. Also, something like this is a very common scenario. Then we also have a pretty good exception handling. I briefly mentioned this already. We are using the standard SAP alert monitoring for this. A pretty well-known solution on the market and a pretty heavy and powerful tool that is connected here to SAP Yard Logistics. We cover complete end-to-end process, end-to-end scenarios. That means coming into the yard, going all those steps on the yard, like for example, a waiting, a parking, the door docking, then driving out with the wait again. All of this is completely covered. So the complete process from entering the yard to exiting the yard is completely covered. We also, and very important, have SAP Fiori in place. So for a lot of scenarios, it totally makes sense to do operations on mobile devices, such as an iPad, such as phones, such as really industry hardware. So for example, for the loading security or for the trailer checker, he is outside on the yard and he is actually doing that on his mobile device. So for example, he is going around the truck and he is checking, the trailer checker is maybe checking for some damages. He's checking the tires, is everything fine? Does he have his loading equipment, something like this? So he can work with a customer questionnaire, for example, a long questionnaire where he needs to check all these answers. And all of this is then covered in SAP Fiori. And if you're using the SAP Fiori world with Cordova, you can even do an offline check on that, and then later on sync this with your database so that they can actually operate without having an internet connection in case your wireless network is not sufficient enough. But the recommendation here is to actually use devices that have an LTE in place, so a fast internet connection via mobile, and with that you can actually really update everything live. Then for the execution part, very important as well is an operational dashboard, so that you only manage your yard by exceptions. In case you have, as I said, a good upfront planning, the better your execution gets, and the less errors will appear on your yard. And from on this operational dashboard, you can actually see how many trucks are delayed, do we have some problems there, what are the alerts. It will even pop up with a new alert in case it's a really, really urgent message and somebody needs to do something. Coming back to the example with the sensors, that means that I have a temperature that actually is reported to the cloud platform, and the cloud platform says the temperature has exceeded, so please, on the yard, go ahead and check the trailer. So this guy will sit, one of the steering guys will sit there, will sit there, and he will actually get a pop-up. This container is now out of range, so he can call his colleague and tell him, please go out and check the container again. Okay, this was the part of the execution. On the right side, you see another example of one of our yards. On the bottom side, you see those work lists that I've mentioned earlier, where you can actually see live what is going on your yard. And this is the tracking I meant earlier. So if you see this picture, this 3D visualization up front, people might say this is really a nice tool, but I think it's maybe also something that we need to play around with. This is not the case, so you can actually also go in and from there you can reposition transportation units. You can also create tasks from that. So for example, I can go ahead and create a new task for a trailer checker because I might have the information from somewhere else that this trailer might not be okay. So I have one additional task that I can actually create from there, which is a pretty good and powerful tool. Also, if you're operating on pretty big yards, this is really something where you have some good business insights. And also, what is really good from this visualization is that you can also see where my transportation units are. So in case I'm working with a scenario where I have rail cars coming in or trucks coming in and they're parked somewhere, and I have specific transportation units with specific properties. So for example, I need to find a trailer now on my yard with that can cover or can carry a 40 feet container. I have a search field where I can actually go in then and search for such a transportation unit, and it will mark the one that is next to my cursor, so to say. So this is a good functionality as well if you're dealing with huge yard and with those incompatibilities. Okay, the next one is the past. So this is one of the screenshots we have from this yard control tower. We see that we now dealing somehow with the past. We see on the in the area down there, we see some alerts. So all those alerts that I mentioned earlier is coming up. So for example, if a truck is late, if something is not really working in that way that I wanted it to work, then I would see this in this area. I can also see some exceptions, and with that, it's hard to see, but you can also see their status. So some of them are resolved, some of them are still in progress, and with that, you can actually see all the exceptions, all the alerts that came in, and how they were solved. If we go a little bit more on the right, we see all the doors. So we see, is there a truck docked? Is the dock is it free? Is it maybe blocked for some movements? So with that, you have a really good overview of what is actually going on your doors, and you can see what the status is. If we go up a bit, we see that we also have a section for planned trucks. So I see everything that is coming onto my yard that is maybe on a parking spot, for example. And on the right side, I can then see that all my trucks that have been checked in, that are somewhere on my yard currently, or the ones that have recently checked in. And having said that, this is more or less the track and trace and also the analysis of issues, but we also need to talk about KPIs. And if, as I said earlier, if we were running this on HANA, we can also see live how many doors are occupied, what are delays, how many trucks have been delayed, and also what are my KPIs on that. On the right side, you see some examples. How many trucks do I have in an inbound process? How much do I have in an outbound process? How many of them are delayed? So you can even do this ad hoc analysis live with SAP HANA. Very important also for the past is to have proper documentation. So we see a lot of customers that are running still on paper. So they document everything on paper, but coming to the digitalization, we of course want to avoid that. So we have the possibility to upload pictures. So in case you do, for example, a trailer check or you do a loading security, you can actually upload those pictures. And what you can do as well is you can upload those signatures. So easy example, I'm responsible now for the loading security. So I have a tablet. I walk around with that tablet with the mobile execution that I've mentioned earlier. Then I take a picture. This picture gets uploaded to Yard Logistics. And the second step is that myself, as a shipper, has to sign this. So I do the signature directly on the tablet. This gets uploaded then to the system. And the next thing is that maybe the truck driver also needs to have signature. So I upload this to the system as well. And with that, I have a complete documentation of this process. I know when did my execution of this loading started, when did it end, and I can even see the pictures. So in case something goes wrong now on the road, I'm always able to search for this specific action that went on my yard, and to have something that is really proven and where I see, okay, I have done these pictures in case somebody is approaching me because he said my loading security was not done sufficient. So this is the part, and with that we actually make the complete circle of the yard processes with SAP Yard Logistics, starting from the planning to the execution, coming to the past. Okay, then I want to talk a bit about a couple of examples that we have here. So as I said earlier, we have this production plant here, and with that we need to make sure that we actually have all the goods just in time and just in sequence. And also, of course, we also have to process the trucks that are coming in. So here on the bottom side, we see we have actually a parking spot. So they come in here. They are going then to this gatehouse here, checking in, driving into the yard, parking. Then we have some parking areas, and on the left side we see also some parking areas, and we see the inbound doors, and with that we see the outbound doors on the right side. So this is a kind of an example for a production plant, and people can say, no, yeah, but we can do this also with SAP EWM yard management. Yes, but what you cannot do is that you drive in with a truck, that you park it somewhere, that you do additional actions in the yard. What you also cannot do is that you move then to the door and then pick up something on the other door again. With that, or you can actually do it, but with a lot of more manual process. And with that, with SAP Yard Logistics, you can actually pre-plan this in a better way, to make sure your yard covers really all the processes and not just parts of the processes. Then another example is a big distribution center. Trucks would arrive at the distribution center. Now I have the need to actually do a really good upfront planning, because my doors needs to be pre-planned. I need to make sure the warehouse integration is there. I'm coming to that in a second as well. But those trucks needs to be handled very efficient and very fast, because every minute that your carrier is driving for you, or you are driving for your customers, is basically money that you either earn or that you spend. So in that case, we need to make sure the truck is going to the right gate, and also on the back side we will also have some doors, and also we might have some parking spots somewhere. So this is a common scenario if you have a big distribution center with a lot of doors, or if you're operating as an LSP. Another example is a large oil and gas site. So in this case, we on the left side have again this check-in area. We see then with here some gray and white parking spots where the trucks actually park before they go somewhere. And we see then a warehouse on the upper side, and on the right side we see all those silos. So trucks may come in, they may have a certain appointment scheduled for some of the silos, and then they would actually drive in. Having said that, we not only covering trucks. My presentation was now focused a little bit on trucks, but still we have also the possibility to go with some rails. Down here you see the tracks where the rail cars are actually coming into the yard, where they are stored, or where they are docked. Then maybe we also need to make sure of coupling and decoupling of trucks, all those shunting operations that we see with the rail coming up. And also this is then basically the same process. So we will check in that train. We need to make sure the locomotive leaves again, and we then do all the shunting operations on the yard and pre-plan all those shunting operations. On the upper side, you also see that we have a ship there. So we also cover those processes there. So in case you have your ship coming in, you need to make sure that also they have to do some paperwork. They need to unload their goods as well. They might have some additional steps that they're doing. For example, if somebody comes on board and does an inspection of the goods of the boat before they actually can unload their goods. So all the transportation modes are basically covered. We saw that we have in this example we have truck, we also have rail, and we also have ocean or ship mode of transport. Okay, then I want to highlight some of the some of the functionalities where SAP is very strong in. So we have a really tight integration with SAP Extended Warehouse Management. How does it work in detail? So we actually have our transportation unit being planned in SAP EWM, and there we have the complete integration. So once the truck arrives in SAP Yard Logistics, we will register the truck in SAP Yard Logistics. We will then do all the pre-steps before we dock to a door, such as driving to the check-in gate, going to a parking spot, having the trailer being or the truck being inspected. And once I arrive at the door, I then set the door arrival in SAP Extended Warehouse Management, and this will give the possibility to SAP Extended Warehouse Management, to EWM, to actually start with the processes in the warehouse, so that the forklift can start bringing the goods into the truck if they have been pre-planned, for example, and that the truck is loaded. And in a certain point in time, my warehouse has done all the jobs, so everything is done from a warehouse side, and I set loading or unloading end. And with this status, it's actually then updated in SAP Yard Logistics to tell the Yard Logistics system, okay, now you are the leading system again. I have done all my warehouse processes, and now you can start docking off of the door and going to another location. And with that, we handed it over to SAP Yard Logistics. So the truck may depart. We go from the door to maybe a parking spot. Maybe we need to do some waiting again to make sure that everything is really not overloaded. And having completed those steps with SAP Yard Logistics, so doing the official checkout, will then also update SAP Extended Warehouse Management with this status. Okay, that was the integration with EWM. Let's move to the a very common scenario, the integration with SAP Transportation Management. So on the left side, we see in SAP Transportation Management, your order is planned, and you have actually assigned a carrier. You agreed on the carrier. You have maybe done some carrier selection. You have done all your pre-planning in SAP Transportation Management. Of course, there we have on the left side maybe an integration with SAP ERP or ECC to actually transfer this over, the sales order, the stock transfer order, or the delivery, depends on your scenario, to SAP Transportation Management to come to this freight order. And then after you have created this freight order, the freight order is actually transferred to SAP Yard Logistics and is making a yard order out of this document. And this yard order contains then all the necessary information, such as where do I need to go in the yard, what are the steps that I need to do. And with that, with this creation, I can start my execution. So the truck checks in, the truck brings or drops off the container in this example, and the truck checks out. So all my steps on the yard have been completed, and with that I update SAP Transportation Management again on this exactly this status, so that I can complete the freight order, and with that I can actually start my charge calculation, and I can do my financial settlement with this carrier, because everything has been completed. And with this was actually the missing piece in SAP Transportation Management. Then we also have an integration with SAP ERP or the S4 world. So we're starting on the left side with the purchase order, with stock transfer order, with sales order or delivery. And this is then planned to a shipment. And this shipment is then integrated into SAP Yard Logistics via an IDOC integration. And with that, we know what is actually going on the yard, what needs to be done. Same as in transportation management, basically. We do all the execution on the yard. We might need to send some data back to ERP, for example, some more detailed carrier information. I might send back some license plates or some driver information, because this might be needed to actually print documents out of SAP ERP. Having done all the execution on the yard, we can send this back then to SAP ERP, so the status on the shipment gets updated, and as in transportation, I can then start doing my financial settlement again in the ERP system. Yeah. Good. This was the ERP integration. Now we move to a kind of an example that we have built. So on the left side, you see we have connected. We see on the front, we see that we have some pagers there. So those are the devices that are next to the iPad, and these pagers actually are from one of our partners. I will come to that in a second. And these pagers are in a mobile network, so they are reachable wherever you are on the yard. And those are sent or used then to send messages to drivers. What they also have, those pagers, is they have an RFID tag on the back side. So once you actually integrate with terminals such as barriers, they are just taking this pager and they're holding it against the terminal. The terminal recognizes, okay, this is pager XYZ, and with that I check in SAP Yard Logistics, is this something that I confirm? Does this guy is really allowed to enter my yard? And with that, I open the barrier then, and the truck driver can drive in. On the right side, you see an example of one of the mobile applications. So this is a kind of a self-check-in term, can run on, for example, on a self-check-in terminal, but basically can run on any device. We are now working with a customer, and we start working with tablets in the first place, and we later on will move this application then to a terminal application. But basically, it's one technical basis that can run on each and every device. Then you also see that there are a couple of cables around that. You see there, those are actually RFID sensors. So whenever there comes an RFID tag that is integrated in those trucks that are moving around, it will recognize that, and it will then update the location on the yard. And then on the back side, you see also there are a couple of displays that have door 1, 2, 3, 4, and those displays are also steered from SAP Yard Logistics. So in case something appears the yard, something appears at the door, or a truck needs to go to this door, you will see then, okay, it's now my time, I need to dock there. So this is a second communication that you can do with the carrier, except from the pagers you see down there. And it's fully integrated, so we are using a middleware here. And having said that, we also have some strategic partnerships where I'm coming in a second to not make this only in a model, but also to build this in real life. And we have strong partners that enables you to do this complete integration and to move to a really automated yard. On the right side, you see that we have some trucks. They actually have a Westernacher logo on it. So we actually print those trucks by ourselves with a 3D printer. So we also wanted to see how this works. This is part of our strategy. We want to be innovative, so we also investigate in something like this. And then you see this in the back. There's some letters that say, okay, you are now allowed to go into the yard. And up there you see that these LEDs, they're also steered by SAP Yard Logistics. Okay, then I would like to move to our strategic partnerships. We see here that we are working with OAS, for example. OAS is one of the leading suppliers for the installation and running of these weighting systems. There you can buy the barriers, you can buy scales, you can buy the RFID scanners. So basically everything that you need to integrate with the pagers. They also deliver some terminals. They also have license plate recognition, and this is completely integrated with SAP Yard Logistics then. So one example would be that a truck arrives and the barrier that is up front is then connected with SAP Yard Logistics, and the RFID readers are speaking with those terminals. One of the competitors, but still our partner, is Pari. They are basically doing the same integration here, and they're doing the same as OAS. They have also some scales, some check-ins, some terminals, this is also being integrated. How does the architecture look of those two partners? So they actually take care of the complete hardware and the hardware communication with the middleware. And after this middleware, then communicates with SAP Yard Logistics. So we have one interface that is then connected to all the devices they have on the yard. So one example would be, I am working with these RFID scanners. So I approach at my terminal. I have my pager in my hand. I hold the pager against the terminal. And then the middleware the hardware is communicating with the middleware, telling them, okay, I have this pager ID, and I'm at this location. And then the middleware would actually transform this into a web service. And this web service is then calling SAP Yard Logistics and asking, is this the right page that I have there? Is this registered in the system already? If the answer is yes, we will send back the message to the middleware. And on those middleware, then some action is triggered. For example, opening the gate and putting a light from red to green so that the truck can actually drive in. And this is the architecture we have done for both companies. Our experience with those companies, I would say, are pretty good. So we have done one project with OAS, which is going live in 2 weeks. Everything works perfectly there. Everything works smoothly. And with PARI, we are currently doing a project. So we know we have the interfaces to both companies as a standard interface. Then we're also working with another company that's called RFID Consortium. They are based near to Frankfurt. And what you have seen in the model is basically what they have built in small, but they can also do this one number bigger, I would say, so that you have all your RFID tags, your readers really under the street that can really work together with this hardware that you have there. This is one thing they can do, but also they do all the devices. So in case you're searching for some industrial hardware, for example, for tablets that have a kind of a protection around it, that have barcode scanners, that really is some industrial hardware you can also get from them. But also, if we talk about GPS recognition, where is my transportation resource right now on the yard? They can also provide you with devices that you can attach them to your transportation units. For example, attach it to a container, and once this container is moving around, you don't actually confirm anything with RFID tags, but you just have the coordinates of this transportation unit being captured then in the system. Another company that we're working together is eCity Roof. They are a manufacturer of those pagers. They are the market leader in Europe, and this pager has one advantage: is it's connected to the mobile network. So whenever you have some service with your mobile phone, you then are also able to receive those pager messages. So the use case for this is I arrive with my truck, and with that truck I move around on my yard, and at a certain point in time I don't have any wireless anymore, so I cannot really connect with the driver. So in that case, these messages can get still through because we are working with their own mobile communication. Okay, then I would like to thank everybody for attending this session here. You see my contact details here. Please feel free to reach me on my mobile, also to send me an email. Please also feel free to follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and also Xing. Thank you all for attending this session. I hope this was an informative session, and we are happy to actually schedule more calls and to schedule more appointments with you. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye-bye.